Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about something that I get asked a lot about, and that is how long does it take to see results? How long should it take for me to see results from my paid ads? This week is going to be part 1 on the Facebook side. Next week is part 2 on the Google side. The first thing that I want to mention, which actually applies to both of those sections, part 1 with Facebook, part 2 with Google, any other media platform out there that you want to buy on. And this is that with the perfect flow and a super high conversion rate and a super high repurchase rate and a really high average order value and the perfect shipping times and wonderful reviews, scaling paid media campaigns is actually easy. It's super fast too. You can do it within 30 days easily on either platform, 60 days max if you're talking scale. So that is the first thing to note here, is that with all these time frames and all the averages and all the nuances that I'm about to talk through, this is taking into consideration that 99.99999% of businesses are not actually ready for scale. And there's things that we learn along the way that are broken in the flow, that aren't super smooth, that will help the conversion rate be higher, that will increase the average order value, all of these things. And this is part of our job as media buyers, to understand those things well enough to where we can tie in what we're doing on the paid media side with the business side. And there truly is so much magic there between the paid media side and the business side. Another thing to note is that every account on the Facebook side, at least, is truly very different. And this is something on the agency side that we get to see cross-client. One of the easiest ways to look at this actually is with CPM. And Facebook, for the exact same vertical, 2 clients in the exact same vertical will give one a $6 CPM and the other a $20 CPM. And those kind of drastic differences in cost can really make a big difference in the way that when we're coming in, the way that we're able to react and how fast things work. So I know that it can be kind of frustrating on the advertising side sometimes, because us media buyers are like, well, it depends, and well, I just have to look at your account. But that really is true, the way that the algorithm actually handles each account quite differently. The last thing that I'll note here is that this segment is really for e-commerce businesses. It's not so much for lead gen. So with lead gen, somebody comes to the page and they either fill out their information or not. There's not a whole lot, unless you have a really long flow, there's not a whole lot that the user can do on the page or should do. There's not a lot of thinking. Are you potentially interested? Would you like to give your information to get more information about this product? Yes or no? So this segment is really for those purchases that are products that are a little bit larger items, or perhaps courses, or things that take a little bit more time to think about than just filling out the lead form information. So let's dive in here. I'm really excited to chat through some of these concepts with you guys. So let's dive in here. There's 2 things that I want to cover first before we get into the actual nitty-gritty of is this performing or not once you've set some new things live. The first thing is your account brand new? And this is a completely different ballgame than if you've been running your ads for 6 months, a year, 2 years, completely different ballgame. And we do find that it takes somewhere between 6 to 12 months to truly, maturely warm up an account and have optimal performance at scale. But that does not mean that you're going to wait 6 to 12 months to see any results. And this is something that I'm quite passionate about, because I hear clients say, oh yeah, we spent money with this agency for 6 months and we never saw one sale. Or, we saw our results were like, thousands of dollars more than we thought that they would be per sale. I truly have heard horror stories regarding this. So I want to make sure that, whereas, yes, maybe 6 to 12 months to full maturity and scale and performance, and you're, raining money. No, but truly, that's kind of the way that you should think about it as far as ramping things up. From day 1, you will see some results, which we'll talk about here in a minute. You will see immediate results on Facebook ads, and you can start reading those and understanding those. The one thing that you have to understand before you start understanding your metrics is that your sales cycle is a factor in the overall equation here. So If your sales cycle is 1 or 2 days or 3 days max, for example, maybe if you're a CPG food brand, people don't think a lot about food. They're either going to buy it or not. They're not going to do some big, long, considered purchase, usually for 2 weeks to figure out if they want to buy a cereal or something. It's probably not going to happen. Some people, yes, but a very small percentage. So if you understand that perhaps your sales cycle is 3 days max, then you understand that within 3 days you should have some kind of a benchmarked stats for how people are going through your flow. The second thing is, or the other side of this rather, is for low to medium price products. So we're talking like $10 average order value up to $3,000 average order value, which, yes, I know is quite the range, but anywhere in there, a cost per add to cart is a great metric to look at. And we find that even if the product costs $3,000, you're going to be getting add to carts for much lower than that. Ideally somewhere in the $200 range, and maybe even less. With the high ticket items, again, going anywhere $500 up to $3,000, $5,000, it's good if you can have some previous benchmarks even to the cost per add to cart. So maybe like a cost per product page view. That gets a little bit more diluted with the data, but it's also better sometimes to go with a little bit of a diluted data set, saying, okay, my cost per product page view needs to be around $6. That's still sometimes better than waiting hundreds or thousands of dollars of spend before you see if you have a couple of sales or not. So that's kind of the way we handle it on that high ticket item side. For the lower ticket item side, that cost per add to cart comes in like so smoothly and so quickly, and it's really a very interesting metric to look at. It's rare that even if you're comparing like one cold audience to another cold audience, it's very rare that the cost per add to cart is drastically different between the two when compared with the conversion rate and the purchase. So maybe one is double the cost per add to cart, but that means that the cost per sale would also probably be double. So those metrics, the add to cart and the purchase, tend to go really closely together. It's far enough along in the funnel to where there's not as much fluctuation between those two things. So once you understand what your add to cart to purchase percentage is, you can really start dialing in on performance on the add to cart level. Now for most businesses, this is somewhere between a 20% add to cart to purchase rate to somewhere in the 30 to 40% range if you're on the high end. If you're on the low end, you're somewhere around 10%. And regardless of where you're at, once you dial in on what that is, you can start optimizing your campaigns based on a cost per add to cart. This is awesome because you don't have to wait to see if it shows up in ROAS or not. If you have a 20% add to cart rate, so 1 out of every 5 add to carts actually purchases, and you have 10 add to carts, but you don't have any purchases yet, that's fine, because okay, no, I'm getting the add to carts. I know my add to cart rate is going to be hit around 20%. This is just a little bit of an outlier. The purchases just haven't quite come in yet. On the other side of things, if you have only 2 add to carts, but they're super expensive, they're like 4 or 5 times the price that you would normally be able to pay for them for the purchase, you can go ahead and cut that baby. You don't need to wait for that thing to have, the 5 add to carts to see if it will have the purchase, or usually we run even a little bit higher than that, right? Usually people recommend running like 2 to 3 times the goal so that you can get the statistical relevant data. But in this case, you don't need it because your stats have already supported that if your add to cart to purchase rate, if it's not going to be within range at that 20%, then you can go ahead and cut whatever you're testing there. This is a really important concept for advertisers and clients to understand. It will allow you to help monitor and manage what's going on. And this is something that I know is really frustrating on the advertiser side when you guys aren't sure, is your agency doing good work? Are they doing what they should be doing? It's not really working, but is this my website? Is this the traffic? And that's something that this will help you start getting to the bottom of. if you are not getting any of the traffic to add to cart, there's one of two things wrong, and maybe both. And the first thing might be that there's something wrong on the site, or maybe the value isn't being portrayed well on the website and kind of getting people through to add to cart. And the other side is this quality traffic? Are these conversion campaigns? Are these lookalike campaigns? Are these really targeted interest campaigns that could actually scale? So those are the questions that knowing how to look at this data and being able to look at these early indicators of success. Don't let your agency or media buyer or in-house person push you off and say, oh, we just need time to optimize, we just need time to optimize, when you can see from the data that it's not going to make sense in the end, or perhaps it does make a lot of sense and you're like, let's scale this up, and maybe they're being a little bit more timid about, well, we just need to make sure, you can start actually being confident about those front-end metrics. Now that we've gotten through all that great content, we're going to talk about what we came to talk about today, and that is, how long does it take to scale up on paid Facebook? Well, for brand new accounts, we talked about the fact that it takes anywhere from 6 months to 12 months to really be at a nice, substantial amount of scale with strong performance, and with all of those things like the conversion rate and the average order value and the flow, all of those things optimized. But if you're talking about seeing those initial results, maybe getting to break even, usually that happens around the 60-day mark, sometimes closer to the 90-day mark. When you start looking at really growing into nice profit margins, usually that's somewhere between the 90-day mark and the 180-day mark, or the 6-month mark. And then to really start scaling the account, the scale comes from month 6 into month 12. And we see clients that are definitely on either side of this. We see some, we've never seen anybody that if they really spent for 12 months that they did not have a substantial paid program. Obviously that's a lot of investment, but that we've never seen anyone who's been, that's taken further to actually grow something significant. On the other side, we've seen clients that from day one are just hot. They're hitting 5, 10x ROAS from day one. We love these clients. Obviously, it's fun, but it's very, very, very rare. So those benchmarks that we've just talked about, the 60 days really hitting some kind of a break even with brand new accounts, 90 days getting into a little bit of profit margin, from 90 days into the 180-day mark, you're starting to build a nice profit margin. From that 6-month mark to the 12-month mark, you're building for scale. If it's not a new account, then this is really, it does depend quite a lot, but we'll put these in 2 different parts. So if you have a really nice structure and you're looking to just increase performance, typically the way that this is done is with creative and messaging, and we can see some really nice movement in 15 to 30 days, somewhere in that range. If we're talking about an account that we need to completely restructure and that there's a lot of kind of bad learnings, or the account's learned in a negative way or with something that's not quite optimal, usually it takes about 90 days to get the account on track. But again, we'll start seeing positive movement in the first 15 days or so. So if you're not seeing performance in the first 15 to 30 days on accounts that have a mature pixel, even if they've learned wrong, then you're probably off track. If you're not seeing movement within the 30 to 60-day mark, at least a steady upgrade for new accounts, a really steady upgrade. You should see performance week over week really changing. Then you might be off track with your creative and messaging or your targeting. You'll notice here, if you were tuned in last week, that there's a lot of similarities between what we're talking about this week and what we were talking about last week. Last week we were talking about the comparison of data over different time periods, when maybe your performance has fallen off a cliff and you're not sure where it came from. And this is not that different, looking at how people are going through the flow and comparing metrics and understanding what it means when relating back to performance. So this is a great thing about media buying, is that there is always something in the data that will tell you what's going on, and it's just a matter of learning how to read it. So we're going to continue bringing you guys episodes like this, and hopefully helping you guys be more confident in your media buys, or managing your media buyers or your agencies or whatever teams you're working with. So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.